he the first Muslim? Was he not a Muslim? Did he accept the Prophet ﷺ? Did he live long enough? What's the story of Waraqah before those moments? Did the Prophet ﷺ ever have a conversation with Waraqah before? All of these questions about Waraqah. And so I decided to go to a man that I've spoken about quite a bit within khutbahs and different classes and lectures, but I've never really gotten to highlight his biography in full. And he's a companion of Waraqah, and he's just a remarkable figure all around, and he deserves this level of attention, and he deserves to be the first. And of course I thought about doing Khadija first, but then people would have accused me of being biased because of my daughter, so I decided that we'll do Khadija third for a reason. The man is Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufayl. Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufayl. An absolutely remarkable figure in the history of Islam, has a story unlike any other person from the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. There is truly nothing like him. And he belongs to this group of people that were called the Hunafa or the Hanifiyin. Not the Hanafis. I know that the followers of the madhab of Imam Abu Hanif rahimahullah would want this to be that the first Muslims were Hanafi, but it's a different type. They're Hanif, meaning they were monotheists. A group of 4 monotheists that decided that they wanted to follow the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam. They wanted to follow the way of Abraham. They looked at their context in Mecca and they were deeply troubled by the paganism and the idol worship, and so they decided that something is wrong about this. And they couldn't quite figure out what the right path would be, but at least these 4 men decided amongst themselves that we're not going to follow the dominant pagan culture in Mecca, and we're going to look for something else. Now, they were 4. They were Uthman ibn al-Huwaydith. I'm only going to do 2 of them in detail. Uthman ibn al-Huwaydith was one of them. He became a Christian and he went to Rome and he actually took up a position amongst the Romans. So he kind of disappears from the story of Islam very early on because he moved out of Mecca very early on, accepted the religion of Christianity as a result of his rejection of paganism, and became, a minister amongst the Romans, and kind of disappears and falls off. There's Ubaydullah ibn Jahsh, whose story is very interesting because he becomes Christian as well in this context, in this climate. Then when the Prophet ﷺ brings Islam, he accepts Islam and he makes the migration to Abyssinia, the Hijrah to Habasha, which is a Christian land. And then the sources seem to indicate that he became Christian again and died as a Christian. However, the narration that states that has some issues with it. So though it's prominent in literature that Ubaydullah bin Jahsh left Islam and became Christian again in Abyssinia and died that way, it's not a confirmed fact because there is some issue with the narration, but that's his story. Now the 2 that we're really going to concern ourselves with and go into detail with are Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufayl and Waraqah bin Nawfal. Waraqah bin Nawfal, who we'll talk about in depth next week, and to be honest with you, I'm excited to talk about Waraqah bin Nawfal because I learned a lot going in depth in research in his life in the last week in particular. Waraqah became Christian too. But Waraqah would become a very specific type of Christian. He would become a Nestorian priest, which was the Christianity that Salman al-Farisi would follow. And we'll talk about that next week when we get into the story of Waraqah ibn Nawfal. So out of the 4 Hanifs, out of the 4 monotheists in Mecca, 3 of them became Christian or joined some iteration of Christianity. Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufayl is never really satisfied with Christianity or Judaism as he sees it in his time. Instead, he insists on being a follower of the way of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He's a follower of Abraham. He's not convinced by Judaism and Christianity as they exist. We're talking about before the Prophet ﷺ has come along as a prophet, but he insists he's a monotheist and he will challenge his society in very unique ways.